Alright, Fairy Tale. This week was episode 221, The Labyrinth of White. And it basically is an episode, just an episode. The only people in the episode are Natsu, Lucy, and Happy, and they are out on a mission to collect some magic never melt ice from Mount Hakube. Or it's not necessary. It's very hard to melt, not necessarily impenetrable, but it has some other anonymous random features, properties to it that aren't really worth mentioning. And they, being in a very snowy mountain, it's very blizzard. They get hit with a blizzard, which is very common in mountains, especially ones that are snow covered. And they take refuge in a cave, and they try and Natsu's like, let's, instead of staying by the entrance, let's go and explore a little. And they end up quickly finding out that they found the legendary living ice cave of the mountain that closes behind them, trapping them inside. And they quickly become lost. And they apparently get lost for several days in this labyrinth-like cave with little food or sleep. And now it's funny because they're trying to stay awake, and the only way they can stay warm is with Natsu's fire magic, and they have to keep hitting him because he keeps trying to fall asleep, and even it's a little funny. And the funniest part is when they get so sleep deprived, they start hallucinating. That's the funny part, because then Lucy starts hallucinating that she won some award for being a fabulous novelist, and one of her prizes is a nice hot bath. So she starts to undress and sit in a pool of ice water, thinking it's full of hot water. And you're friggin' Natsu, who's dreaming about food, hallucinating about food and whatnot. And then eventually, of course, they figure out that they snap out of it, and and then they eventually find the exit to the cave and retrieve a sample. But before these special ice that they've been looking for, and before they can get out, they are attacked by a giant octopus-like monster. But unfortunately, because they've been spent several days without food or sleep, they are too fatigued to fight. And just when they think they can't, it chases them down the mountain, and just when they thought that they were going to be, taken out by this monster because they were too weak to fight him, she remembers, one of the properties of the ice is that it can restore your energy. So Natsu eats it and is restored. His energy is restored, so he can defeat the monster. And then they immediately collapse in exhaustion because then they realize that because of the ice, Natsu ate the ice. They got to start over again. So that was kind of slightly funny, I guess, at the end. But overall, it was an okay episode. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. And the preview for next week's episode is they're making an episode out of that one extra chapter, I guess you call it, where Natsu and Lucy try to learn transformation magic. So, I mean, that should be interesting to see what they do with that. And now, I don't. So it's definitely, just curious how much longer they're going to be doing filler episodes before they get back to canon. Because it's been, like I said, it's been a while since we've gotten the. Because I don't remember when they started the next. Was it the what was the I'm trying to remember what was Let's look at the, because it's kind of. Okay. I'm trying to figure out, like, trying to see based on the titles of the coming chapters, what, or episodes, if any of the episode titles indicate a switch to canon, and it doesn't look like it, because I'm trying to think, was it it looks like uh probably, because the next couple of episodes are called, don't look like it, because there's Kiki, someone arriving at chemo, and the place you came before, the Thunderman, and Fairy Tale of the Dead. Sounds more like a Halloween episode. I don't know why they would do a Halloween fillerish type episode, but whatever. Anyway, this week's Fairy Tale was okay. Now, Naruto Shippuden, episode 401, The Ultimate. And just as predicted, this entire episode was dedicated to Rock Lee facing the Shira. And they start off appearing to be on par with one another, but Neji points out that Lee is taking more damage because Shira is more physically built, has a bigger physique, whereas Lee's slimmer. And to make matters worse, Shira manages to disable Lee's chakra flow by hitting chakra points, preventing him from using his 8 gates techniques. And then immediately resorting to switching to a style of attacking silently, apparently in a similar way that owls fly silently when they're attacking their prey, to make it put even more pressure on Lee. But then Lee remembers a training session he had with Guy about showing how Guy was able to watch, Guy claiming, "Oh, I can predict your movements, even though don't have any special powers, just using my brain." And the whole point, that lesson, was about how Guy teaching him that if you can make movements that will produce predictable that could actually produce predictable movements in your opponents, so it makes it easier for you to predict what they're going to do, because you're making them do a certain move, and that way you can counter it. And then Shira decides, he wants a bigger challenge, so then he releases, he unblocks Lee's chakra points, which then allows Lee to open his 8 gates. And then he opens the 5th gate, goes straight for the 5th gate, the 3rd gate, and then Shira activates his own special technique, which he calls the 7 Heavenly Breaths, which is, they claim to be his own self-made equivalent to the 8 gates, which enhances his attack power and his lung capacity and then they both seem to be evenly matched, but then Lee soon wins by activating the 5th gate. And then, the battle's over. And then they go running off saying, "Yay! We found, it was a good match, and, we finally get to move on." Shira's mentions in the fight how mentions how this was his last fight, because if he becomes a Chunin, he's gonna take on a certain guard duty that many people don't like to do, and it'll keep him away from the village for very long, so he won't get to see Lee again. Which is which then even though they don't have to make sense out of filler, they decided to make, oh, this is an excuse why you don't see Shira in canon because he took on this mission, this patrol duty that prevents him from being in the plot, which doesn't make any sense because I don't remember ever once people trying to make sense of filler. Like, oh, we're going to give an excuse why this filler isn't mentioned. Like, why? It's filler. Filler's filler. Elsewhere, you Gara is informed that Fu's teammates are actually Jonin and not Geni, but he decides not to let anybody else know, and then he uses and doesn't do anything yet as of yet. But then he uses his third eye ability to spy on Team Fu, only for his, even though his eye was hidden, to be quickly discovered by Fu herself. And at the end of the chapter, he doesn't say it, he's about to say it, but at the end of the chapter, you see Gara figured out that she is a Jinchuriki. Because just by the look of his face and the fact of that, about what, like, where in the sentence he got cut off. The fight, the episode was okay, mainly because, I feel like we've been dwelling on this whole Shira and Lee thing a little too long, because I'm like, okay, I want to see the other, Genin that are trying to become Chunin. But the fight itself I thought was a pretty good fight. Because, it's not, especially when as in this late in the game, we don't get a really good fight between, a really good taijutsu fight. So it was very refreshing to see a good taijutsu fight. Now the next episode, Escape versus Pursuit. In the preview, it looks like it's focusing on Team 8. So, overall, look good. I like the episode because of the fight, and I'm interested to see how Team 8 fares in the tuning exams next week. No, that's it.
Okay, so it's time for anime, and this week we'll start with Kuroko no Basket, I guess. So Kuroko no Basket, we've finished the game with Shutoku versus Rakuzan, and Rakuzan won by I think like 16 points. Akashi doesn't really accept the handshake of Midoriyama because he wants to play the villain basically, and he is. So, I mean, on one hand, it's like, okay, you're just being a dick. And on the other hand, it's like, okay, I guess that makes some sort of sense. I don't know. When I read this in manga, I wasn't really a fan of Akashi. He really grew, I think, later on. But, um, yeah. So, the main event of this episode was Kisei going to work with perfect copy right off the bat. Ida Rico, she wanted to do a fast-paced offense like usual and get the points right away. But Kisei counteracts that plan by using perfect copy right away, and he uses Midoriyama first to shock everyone, and then he uses Murasaki Bara, I think, and then Almine, and then Akashi, and then back to Midoriyama, I think. I'm not so sure what the order was, but it's been a couple days. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I do like Kisei. Some people don't like him as much. I do like him, though he's weaker than a lot of the Generation of Miracles in terms of character, in my opinion. But, I mean, that's it. There's not much. There was some really cool animation. There's a lot of cool stuff in general. But I think the chapter rating, I guess I would say, is pretty good. I enjoyed it. quite a bit, especially like Shutoku going out like strong and all that. But obviously the main event being Kisei laying the smackdown early on Seiren, and so I guess that's it. And now we'll go to JoJo. 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 Um, yeah, so Stardust Crusaders Part 2, basically, of Part 3. um, so I think this was episode 7, right? And, um, or whatever, 32 or whatever, I don't know. Yeah, this was Part 2 of the chick with the magnetism. I can't remember the name all of a sudden, and I don't really care. But oh my gosh, this was a hilarious fucking episode. Hilarious. I had to pause this. Um, I had to pause the episode like twice in the same like minute and a half of Avdol and Joseph just getting in the most awkward positions thanks to the magnetism and then just trying to slide out. Just thinking about it, Avdol looks like he was sucking Joseph's dick, and then it looked like he was fucking him in the ass. Oh, that was so good. And then, when they were doing it looked like they were doing the dance, and there's just this guy staring. I'm like, what the fuck are you staring at, man? That was so funny. I was crying laughing. It's hard to get me to that position, but I was crying laughing. It was just amazing. Just Joseph and Avdol in those positions just really just fucking got to me. And this magnetism keeps getting stronger and stronger, and they're almost in trouble with the train, but Avdol and Magician's Redo is able to burn through the tracks and create a hole big enough for the two of them. And eventually they're able to come up with a plan, which, is a pincer attack. And of course, Joseph being Joseph in this episode, he was very smart in this episode, finally, where he was talking about the polarizing stuff with magnetism, how like the opposite ends attract. That was very smart. And then the whole pincer attack with the hermit purple thingy. I keep wanting to say spiritual message. I don't know if that's right. And I know that's Hunter x Hunter, but I think it's Spirit Photo. Similar. But yeah, they do a pincer attack, and while she thinks that she still has them, they're able to exploit a very basic weakness um, of the stand, which is the fact that yeah, they're being pulled towards each other. So in a pincer attack, they're gonna crush her in the middle. So yeah, I mean, it was stupid of her to stand in between. It was a very basic weakness, and Joseph was able to exploit it with a pretty solid plan. And so this was a great episode, obviously for the hilarity, but also for Joseph and his planning. That was pretty cool. Obviously reminiscent of part 2. I would have really liked it if he used Hamon, but who knows? I mean, would it have really been useful? Probably not. But wait, hold on. In part 1, Jonathan was able to like bust up the steel or whatever the metal on one of Dio's, main subordinates' arms. Remember that? The metal silver overdrive? Um, yeah, there was that. Because metal can conduct Hemon, and so he could have done that on the train tracks. That would have been amazing. Just because it's Hemon. It's Hemon, or Ripple, whatever you want to call it. It's fucking awesome. So yeah, I guess that's it for anime. Good episodes.